Let's see if it's actually going to work. Let's see if the screen's actually going to come up any second now. So there's always that little bit of lag. There's always just that little bit, because like maybe 10, 15 seconds. It seems like it should have started already. There it goes. All right, just making sure the camera's working. Just making sure that StreamYard is actually putting up the picture. So today we've got to open up Blaine Mainframe Parker, and I forgot I was going to look up his file card. So I'm going to go ahead and do that right now. But Mainframe is the last of the vintage GI Joe figures, not vintage, last of the classified, the basic classified GI Joe figures that I have to open up this time. And then I have some deluxe figures and some vintage carded figures, like again, not vintage, but the vintage style cards. And then my Christmas figure, the figure that I'm opening for my Christmas episode this year. Sorry, I'm trying to talk and type at the same time. And I don't know where my Zorana figure is right now. I was looking for her earlier, but I couldn't turn her up. So I don't know where she got off to. And I also can't find my Mainframe custom that I made years ago. I wanted to compare the old custom that I made to this new figure, and I can't find that. So the only logical explanation I can come up with is they ran off together. That's the only thing I can think of. So I'm going to read Mainframe's file card real quick, and it says codename Mainframe, computer specialist, file name Parker, comma Blaine L, social security number or serial number or whatever that is. Primary military specialty, computer technology. Secondary military specialty, infantry. Birthplace, Phoenix, Arizona. Phoenix, the mythical bird, who is famous for being reborn. As we'll find out that Blaine L. Parker here was reborn. Mainframe enlisted in the Army Airborne at the age of 17 and made it over to Southeast Asia, that's Vietnam, for the last year of hostilities, just in time to get his combat infantryman's badge. He left the Army to get his degree from MIT on the GI Bill and did a stint in the antiseptic corridors of Silicon Valley, making big bucks and fighting off boredom with a stick. Luckily, the Marines were looking for a few good men with just his qualifications. The proper papers were signed, and Mainframe was back in uniform. And then the quote at the bottom with one of the other Joes, their assessment of Mainframe. Too much of the modern battlefield is computer coordinated to not have a computer specialist right out there in the field with you. The problem is most hackers don't exactly fit the combat profile. Mainframe is the exception. He was 10 years older than the next oldest trainee at Paris Island, and he still finished in the top of his class. He's got brains, but he's hard. And that's something that we saw in the comic book. And one of the probably the only story that heavily featured Mainframe. He popped up as background character here and there, and supporting character. But one of the few storylines in which he was a main character was when he was teamed up with Dusty and this kid during a mission in the Middle East. And the kid was child soldier. He was a guy who'd been kind of like a guy that I know. Shout out to Najabullah if you managed to catch this. During a time of war, and this kid gets dragged into this war at a time when, at a time in my life where I was still collecting GI Joe action figures. This kid is being GI Joe for real. So he's teamed up with Dusty and Mainframe, and just like kind of idolizes Dusty, because Dusty is somebody that he sees as being like this badass warrior, and Mainframe is somebody that he looks at as being kind of weak because he works on computers, whatever. But throughout the course of the mission, he realizes that Mainframe's a pretty badass guy himself, and Mainframe kicks a little bit of ass and beats up some bad guys, and then all of a sudden Sadiq wants to learn computers. And we do see him years later in the comic book, and he has indeed become a computer expert. And I kind of like to think that he basically became like the Rise of Cobra version of Breaker. Because remember, the original Breaker did get killed in the comic book eventually. So, he basically wound up, joining up with the G.I. Joe team, and they gave him Breaker's code name as an homage. But anyway, Mainframe was always one of my favorite characters from the time he was introduced, and I was probably kind of unusual in that regard. But Mainframe was a Marine, which I kind of feel like G.I. Joe just doesn't have enough Marines, like, to begin with. And at the time, when I first got this figure, I had an uncle who was in the Marines, who was a computer specialist. So you see, it was kind of like it was kind of like something that I had some kind of like familiar connection with. It's like something that I knew. Oh yeah, that's like in real life. That's something that my uncle. That's kind of like what he does. So that's cool. But yeah, and I liked that Mainframe was like an older guy compared to the rest of the Joes. I thought that was something else that made him interesting. And then he had that relationship with Zorana on the cartoon show, which neither of them, it seems like the other one would be their type. But somehow, the heart wants what the heart wants, man. So I'm gonna go and take a stupid piece of paper out of here right now. God, I got like a stack of these papers I need to throw out. Let's see. He's figure number 178 in the G.I. Joe classified line. There is a portrait of Breaker on the side with a gun and a laptop. And you see he's wearing a cap with headphones. They're really proud of this extra head with the cap and the headphones. You would think that if they were so proud of it, they would have put that on there instead of the regular one. But I guess, they wanted to, not have the helmet on the head. But it does show the helmet on the head and the backpack. Looks very similar to the backpack that the original Mainframe came with. And one thing that I notice is that he does have a slightly darker gray on the pants. It doesn't really come across in the camera that well. But he's got a slightly darker gray on the pants than he does on the shirt, which tells me that this is a pants and a shirt. They got him colored like the cartoon, whereas the original figure had a uniform gray jumpsuit. It wasn't supposed to be shirt and pants. But on the cartoon, it was colored as a shirt and pants. You can see the blue insert with the G.I. Joe star and stripe logo on there. So, and then we got a bunch of accessories in here to take out. So I kind of wonder if maybe at some point they're planning on doing like a vintage card of this guy where they'll put him in just the all gray jumpsuit. It doesn't seem like to me that like Mainframe is like a popular enough character to do that with, and most of the characters that they do on the vintage cards are kind of like the more iconic characters. We've had like Stalker and Rock and Roll. And Snake Eyes, obviously, Duke, Scarlet, Recondo. Mainframe to me seems a little bit obscure to get that kind of treatment. I'm just saying. And again, I'm saying this as a guy who's a fan of the character. I like the character. So when I 3D printed out Mainframe, I noticed he had a Marine Corps logo on his belt buckle on the original figure. So I made sure that I printed out a Marine Corps logo to go on the belt buckle of mine. But this one does not have a Marine Corps logo on there. He has that kind of weird generic eagle symbol that both I don't know if it's a Snake Eye. Both Gung Ho and Leatherneck have those on. And it's also on his helmet, because on the cartoon, on the figure, it's just kind of a generic silver dot, but on the cartoon they had the Marine Corps logo on there too. And then we've got these two little doodads. I'm not sure what these are, but I guess they could be anything you want them to be. Walkie-talkies, something to detect something else. You know, it's got like a little exclamation point on there in some parentheses, which tells me that it's probably looking for a Wi-Fi connection and can't find it. And then this one's got some kind of little readout on there that I can't quite make out in this light. But Autistic Wrestling Federation is here and says, "Yo, Joe!" And the collab with Sergeant Slaughter is everything I know about G.I. Joe. Well, stick around this channel and you'll learn a little bit more at least. So let's see. I didn't really be talking about this stuff as I check it out, but here's the backpack. And it's got some readouts on there that, again, I can't really make it out in this light. It's kind of like a dark green, like, you know, for what it's supposed to be, it's kind of a dark green against black. But it's got a little cooling fan on there, got an antenna, got a speaker. So this is probably like for communications mainly. All right, so there's a little space there. You see that? That is this little oblong peg there. That'll stick in there. So this is a device that attaches onto his backpack. And I don't know about this one. It's got like a loop on it that looks like it should loop over something. I guess you could put it on his backpack too if you want to loop it over the antenna. But we'll figure out what this piece does later on. And we had a little knife. I don't know how much I showed this off or talked about it. Got a little knife and a little automatic pistol, a little Glock looking thing. Autistic Wrestling Federation asks, who makes the classified series? Well, that's Hasbro. This is the line of G.I. Joe figures that Hasbro themselves makes. Super 7 makes some, and I think that's it. I think it's just Hasbro and Super 7. So here's the laptop, and the original Mainframe came with a big clunky computer that he carried around with a handle, and this one has a much slimmer, much more portable 80s Mainframe. Wishes he had something like this, but we're now in the 21st century, so we get to have something a little more fancy. What is unusual to me about this, what seems to me unusual, is that the thicker part of it is the part with the keyboard on it. Or the thinner part is the part with the keyboard on it. The thicker part is the part with the screen. And most laptops are kind of the opposite of that, because, you know, you set it on a desk like that, this thing's going to fall over. Am I even going to get it to sit up? No, it's trying to fall over. So that's a design flaw with this thing. But I'm guessing that they did that because you've got this little disk drive thing that comes out. And it's got some printing on there too. This is in red. And it says something on here, but I can't quite make it out. I'm going to try my flashlight. Maybe that'll help. Access. It says access. And it's got a thumbprint and like a little wavy line. So that's what's up with that. So that's probably the reason that they made this a little too thick and why it doesn't want to sit up quite right. Is because of that, because they wanted to have that disc removed. But couldn't you have that removed from the part with the keyboard on it? I'm just saying, that's how my old laptop worked, was all that stuff was down on the bottom, because the screen part was just pretty much just the screen. So they did not design this as well as they could have. It should have had the keyboard on this part of it. That's really more how you do that. But oh well. And then you can see the printing on the screen there. So all right, and then we got the figure himself and the alternate head. And like I said, this is the head that seems to be featured on most of the packaging, rather than the classic Mainframe helmet. We have a gray ball cap with a red and gold patch on it, and some headphones with a microphone. And to me, the face looks exactly the same. It's got the same facial expression and everything. So So yeah, it's basically just different headgear. And then Mainframe himself. And I want to mention again how much I love and appreciate that Hasbro has done away completely with rubber tabs and twist ties and all that kind of BS. And I don't have to deal with that opening this guy up. I just take him out of the package, and it's great. It's awesome. So here's Mainframe out of the package, and we can see he's got some silver doodads all over him, little techie pieces. And the original Mainframe figure had this kind of stuff as well. He's got a little bit of some scrambled eggs there, some kind of like rank and identification and whatnot. He's got little things on his collar too, but they're not painted. The collar is painted a slightly darker gray, which matches up to his pants. He's got some cables wrapped up on his belt there. That's a nice little detail. So just got some extra cables, little pouches, and everything everywhere. Little pouches. Got a knife sheath. Got a holster. I'm guessing this thing is to hold this little device that we looked at earlier, and it fits in there fairly well. It's a little loose. I wouldn't trust it in the backyard. It does not pass my backyard test. Bobby Wald is here and says Mainframe is exactly the guy you never give your mother's maiden name to, the name of your first pet, or what street you grew up on. Yes, indeed, exactly. That's a guy who could put that kind of information to some pretty devious use if he wanted to. Oh, and those of us who had the original Mainframe figure when we were kids, we remember this unit patch on the arm. It's recreated over here with a little more detail to it. So that's cool. A lot of people talk about what actors they think these classified figures look like. I was talking about on the Footloose episode how a lot of people say that he looks like Pedro Pascal. To me, Mainframe looks a little bit like Luke Wilson, and that probably would be a good casting. Like if they did a G.I. Joe movie today and they wanted to have somebody play Mainframe, yeah, Luke Wilson, that would be a good guy, I think. In fact, my custom, if I knew where it was right now, I would show you. My custom, I think, looks kind of like Luke Wilson. Maybe just Mainframe looks like Luke Wilson. Maybe that's what he's supposed to look like. I don't know. But I wish I had the custom so I can compare and contrast. See, well, when I made my Mainframe custom, he was not short because I used the same body as Lieutenant Falcon, which also isn't a jumpsuit, but I painted it all gray, so it looked close enough to a jumpsuit. Man, I hope I can find that because I really would like to do a video comparing the two of them. And I wanted to compare him with Tunnel Rat. Yep, he's the same height as Tunnel Rat. He uses what looks like to me most of the same parts as Tunnel Rat. He's got the same arms and the same legs. Everything from the waist down looks like it's the same as Tunnel Rat, which I think was not a good decision. And I get why you'd want to get a little more use out of Tunnel Rat, but the thing is that T-Rat is a particularly short character, and he's supposed to be a particularly short character. And the people who made this figure were smart and said, hey, let's make sure we make him short because the fans will notice that sort of thing and they'll pay attention to it. And the person who decided to reuse that body for Mainframe was not being that smart, honestly. Sorry, guy, but Mainframe should not be this short. Like, what the hell? Like, Shockwave's the guy that I usually use. This is an average G.I. Joe height figure. This is about how tall most of the classified figures are. That's about how tall that Mainframe should be. But he's not. And looking at him next to the Arctic Storm Shadow, this hood kind of popped up. So even Storm Shadow is a little bit taller than him. And oh god, if we want to make him look really short, put him next to Roadblock. But I will say on the positive side, they did give Mainframe an original torso, at least the top part of it. The lower part of it might be the abs. I think the abs look like they're the same. But the top part of it is unique and definitely designed to resemble Mainframe's look on the original action figure. So that's a nice thing. I'll give them that. But it was a mistake to make Mainframe a short guy. Mainframe's not supposed to be a short guy. Mainframe has never been mentioned as being short or drawn as being short or anything like that. He's a good height. Bobby Wald says maybe they should have added a Frodo Baggins alternate head. Yeah. or just make him look like Elijah Wood to begin with. Yeah, we were talking earlier in the week about Rob Reiner and that whole tragedy with him and his wife sadly leaving this world in a pretty horrible way. And people keep talking about like The Princess Bride was such a great movie, and I love The Princess Bride, and Misery was such a great movie, and Stand By Me was such a great movie, and A Few Good Men, that was such a great movie. You Can't Handle the Truth, Jack Nicholson and Tom Cruise, great movie, and North. Princess Bride really was a great movie, wasn't it? Here's a funny story about North. Is me and my cousin Amy one time decided we were going to go to the movies, and we didn't have a movie in mind to watch. We decided we'd just figure it out when we got to the Dollar Theater. Thankfully, it was the Dollar Theater. And we got there, and we're looking at the stuff. What's North? Let's watch that. I paid $1 for it. Still felt like I got ripped off. So anyway, I'd only seen Elijah Wood in 2 movies up to this point. The other one being his very small part in Back to the Future Part 2. So when he got cast as Frodo, I was like, oh no, the kid from North? Oh, that movie was horrible. But thankfully, Lord of the Rings was a better movie than North, and he did a good job. He was a good Frodo. I'll give him that. So it's not his fault that North was a bad movie. Anyway, let's go ahead and talk about his articulation. Where did I put his head? Okay, there we go. I just want to make sure I don't lose that. All right, so Mainframe can look up about that far, look down about that far, tilts his head quizzically from side to side, rotate the head all the way around. Of course, the arms rotate all the way around the shoulders, and they've got that funky G.I. Joe butterfly joints. They can move back and forth like that. Arms raise up to the side about that far. He does have a bicep swivel, so the bicep rotates all the way around. He's got double jointed elbows. That's about the range of motion you get at elbows. And then his wrists rotate all the way around, and it looks like they have vertical hinges on them, up and down like that. Bobby Wald says, always remember Elijah Wood from that movie, The Good Son. Yeah, I never got to see that one. I never saw that one. From what I understand, him and Macaulay Culkin are still good friends to this day, so that's nice. So, maybe if I'd seen The Good Son, I wouldn't have been so worried about the kid from North playing Frodo. Maybe then I would have been like, well, he was pretty good at The Good Son. Maybe he'll do all right in this one. But yeah, it looks like both the hands. Because I don't remember from Tunnel Rat. It's been so long since I opened that one up. But it looks like both the hands have like the no, this one has a horizontal hinge to it. So and he again has this kind of clunky wristband. Kind of got in the way of me even being able to see where the wrist joint was. It's a cool wristband. I like it, so I'm not trying to knock on it. But he can kind of get him into a position where he's kind of like typing on it or something. Probably using that to hack into the Terrordrome somehow. And then something else I want to point out is there is a point of articulation on the web gear because his holster actually can rotate around. So that's nice. As I remember, the holster on the figure was a little more to the side like that. So that gives you the option that you can pose it however. You can have it stick out to the side, but if it gets in your way, you can kind of move it back down or, keep it straight up and down. However you want to do it, really. It gives you some display options. So that's good. So Mainframe has an ab crunch that can bend forward about that far and bend backward about that far. And he's got a little bit of wobble at his waist, can move from side to side, frontwards and backwards. It's kind of similar to the old vintage G.I. Joe waist articulation, but it's not an O-ring. It's a ball and a socket. So, but it still kind of reminds me of that a little bit. And of course, you can rotate all the way around at the waist, which I just dropped some. I'll knock the holster off. So be careful of that. He should rotate all the way around the waist, but it seems like, oh, I see what it is. The web gear actually attaches to the belt. So he would, in theory, rotate all the way around, except for the web gear is going to keep that from happening. You can see it's actually got a strap. I didn't notice because I was too distracted by the holster. But yeah, so there's that. And the holster, like I said, even though it is really cool that it's articulated, that also means it can fall out. So be careful with that. All right, so where was I? Mainframe can kick up about that far. And he does have the drop-down hips, so that's nice. And the web gear also attaches to the straps around his legs. So this is all one big piece. It's not like the usual ones where like the web gear kind of like straps around the torso and then you have a belt and then you have leg pieces. No, it's all one big piece of web gear that just straps around everything. And let's see, where was I? He does have a thigh cut, so the thigh rotates all the way around. I remember complaining also at the time with Tunnel Rat is that I felt like he should have bell-bottom pants, and they seem like they're a little more bloused on this guy. And it does work better to have the blouse pants on Mainframe. So I kind of wonder if maybe they were planning on using this body for Mainframe at some point. But they really should not have. They really should have put him on, like, used any other body other than Tunnel Rat to do this guy. Like, maybe use Tunnel Rat to make a figure of Billy or something. But Mainframe should not be this short. I don't know why. I don't know whose decision it was to make Mainframe this short. But, like, you should probably, like, dock them half a day's pay or something like that. It was a bad call, Ripley. It was a bad call. Where was I? Oh, yeah. So he's got double jointed knees. That is about the range of motion you get at the knees. And I'm going to say this also, since I was talking about it earlier, making a vintage card figure of Mainframe. If they were to do that, please put him on a taller body when you do it. Get it right this time. Like I said, when I did my custom, I just reused Lieutenant Falcon's whole body, and it worked out just fine. Just put him on a Lieutenant Falcon body. It would be nice if you had the same torso on there, but like it's not that necessary. Once you get the web gear on there, it'll look fine. Just don't make him short this time, okay? Just if you make a vintage figure of Mainframe, make him tall. So yeah. Oh yeah. Rest of the articulation. So he does have ankle a boot cut, rotates all the way around. Ankle points down about that far, points up about that far, and the foot rotates all the way around where the foot meets the ankle. So that's cool. All right. So accessories. So we got the automatic pistol, the kind of little Glock looking gun, and his hands do seem like they're a little more rigid type of plastic than the classified hands have been lately. So I'm going to try to work it in there. So there he is with that. Looks pretty cool, doesn't it? Yeah. Like I said, this is a guy who's like, he's a computer guy, but that doesn't mean he's not a badass. All right. So, and that should fit into the holster. Oh, they did the annoying thing where they have like a little strap on the holster. And that's really not good, considering how this thing actually comes off of the web gear. So you run the risk of, like, if you try to pull the holster open, you wind up pulling the holster off the web gear. And it actually fits in there very snugly. It does not need that little strap. That is unnecessary. So I am not even going to bother to close the little strap back up. I'm going to leave it as it is. So I might cut it off later. I might take the X-Acto knife and just get rid of it. I do not like the little straps on the holsters. Just make the gun fit in the holster properly. I don't need a little strap. It doesn't need to be that realistic. You know what I mean? So, and he doesn't come with any kind of rifle or anything. But the original Mainframe didn't come with a rifle, so I can kind of forgive that. But again, going back to my custom that I wish I knew where it was, I gave him a little submachine gun because I wanted him to have a little something to shoot at people with. Because, it's G.I. Joe figures. You want them to be able to shoot people, right? You want them to be able to shoot the bad guys. I'm going to be specific about that. The Cobras, I want to be able to shoot the good guys, but they're bad guys, so they do bad things. Anyway, got the knife here. I'm going to make sure I have the blade facing outwards and see if I can fit that in the hand. And there he is with the knife. Looks really cool. And it's just a little knife. But he doesn't need that big of a knife. He's not trying to overcompensate for anything. Just ask Zorana. So we get the knife in the sheath. That's what that looks like. And again, that fits in there nice and snug. The pistol, the sidearm fits in its holster fairly well, and the knife fits in the sheath fairly well. And this little doodad just it fits kind of loosely in there. It doesn't seem to want to stay very well. So that does. The other two pass the backyard test. This is not pass the backyard test. Do not take this into your backyard. But 2 out of 3 ain't bad, right? I suppose I could take a little bit of glue and affix it in there. Maybe I try it the other way around. So, okay. So here's what you do. And it's still not in there as snugly as I would like, but it's in there a lot more snugly if you do this. And I went on, I thought this would be the case, but this is something where they're wanting you to be like they've got a very specific way they want you to do this. Make sure you have that little display screen facing out. If I'd have thought about that before, I just kind of stuck the thing in there. I wasn't really paying too much attention to where the display screen was. Then it probably would have been. So I'm glad I didn't, because then I noticed that it fits in there really loose when you have this display screen facing into the leg. So don't do it that way. Do it this way, and hopefully it'll stay in there a little bit better. All right, so we got one more handheld accessory, and that is his laptop, which, like I said, has a little handle on it, so you can carry around the laptop. And since the handle's kind of delicate and rubbery, and these hands, like I said, are particularly rigid for a G.I. Joe classified figure, I'm going to have to kind of work it in there very carefully. I don't think I want to have it in there that way, because he's got a trigger finger. And you can see that, like, there's a little bit of a, see where, like, the case protrudes a little bit on one part of it. So I think I want to make sure that I have the trigger finger where the case has got a little more space there. And voila! There he is holding his laptop. Oh, yeah. I got it figured out. All right, so let's see here. We got the helmet. I don't want to put the helmet on him yet, though, because first we do have the extra head. So I'm going to pop the extra head on there. And I can see why they're proud of this extra head. I can see why they would want to show it off on the packaging. I can see the appeal of having a more realistic version of Mainframe. I get that. But this is not the head. I don't think I'm going to display him with this head, because I'm a little more old school, and I like to have the characters looking like they're vintage versions as much as possible. I don't mind that we shrunk Mainframe's laptop up a little bit. That makes sense to me. But I don't mind. Like it's, if he'd only come with this head, then my complaint would be, why is the baseball cap gray when it should be black? Because if it was black, then it would at least kind of look like the vintage helmet. This to me is, though, like more of a realistic sort of thing, like Mainframe would actually wear. Whereas, like, I don't know what the thought process was with this old helmet. Like it almost looks kind of like a batting helmet that he adapted. Maybe it's got some tech doodads in there. I don't know, but I do like this look. I do think this is cool. But I'm gonna have him look more old school, even if I don't think the helmet makes all that much sense, and I never really understood it. I still okay. You know what just happened here? When I went to pull the head out, it pulled out the barbell from the neck. So that's annoying. Try that again. I can get that back in the neck. Man, why did that have to happen? That is annoying. Ah. And now the barbell's all pressed up against the inside of it. So I'm going to try to pry it back the other way. And then I scratched my finger. Don't worry, it didn't draw blood. It just kind of scratched it enough to be annoying. Man, that is a small hole for me to try to fit this peg into. That one's for free. And I know my pliers are in the other room. So that's going to make it tricky to get this back out of here. See, part of the problem is when they've got these alternate heads on here, and this is a lot of the times why I just don't bother with putting the alternate heads on here. I wanted to do it with this one, though, since, like, you know, they were so proud of it and showing it off so much. But, like, since the heads are kind of like virgin heads, you know what I mean? It's, they don't quite want to, it's easier to get it off of the neck than it is to get it off. And I don't have my pliers. I don't have my pliers in this room. So it looks like I got it at least part of the way out. So I'm going to try to kind of use these scissors. And hopefully I can just kind of pry it out that way. And hopefully not cut myself open while I'm doing it. There we go. All right. So we managed to avert that crisis. And this barbell is not symmetrical. I noticed that the side that was in the neck is a little bit smaller. All right, Blaine. And then I dropped, of course. Then I dropped it. We are just not having the best of luck with Mainframe's neck. All right. See if I can find it now. Oh, Hasbro, why do you do such things to me? I found it. You guys are getting your money's worth on this episode. Yeah, it's a free show, so you always get your money's worth, but damn, that's some entertainment, isn't it? All right, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to kind of try to take the head and sandwich the barbell between. You know what? If I kind of not the most dignified solution, but it worked, didn't it? Yeah. So now the barbell is in the regular head. And there we go. I got it put back together. That's some know-how right there. Do not attempt that at home, because I don't want anybody to wind up choking to death on Mainframe neck barbells. So then he's got this hose. So I'm going to figure out how to do this hose. And what I'm suspecting is that it should probably attach from the backpack into the laptop. So let's go ahead and put the backpack in, if we can put the backpack in. And it seems like that the backpack hole, there we go. It almost seemed like it was going to be too small for it to fit, but I got it to fit. All right, so you see there's a little hole here. So we can connect the hose. I keep calling it a hose because I dropped the thing that plugs into his backpack. Well, I'm not going to put it back in right now. I'm going to leave it out for now. I always want to say hose because the ones that came with our old G.I. Joe figures back in the 80s literally were little plastic hoses. But this one is more of like a solid plastic cable. And I'm pretty sure it's supposed to be a cable in the reality of the toy as well. So I was thinking that this probably should attach to the laptop someplace. But the only place I'm seeing to attach it to the laptop is where the hinge is. And this peg is too big to fit in the other end of the hinge. There's not anything on the bottom. Is there something maybe on the computer that I'm missing? Nope. So I have no idea where you're supposed to attach this hose into. Now, when I was plugging in at first, like it wasn't wanting to plug in on this side. So I think this end is too big. So I'm just not going to fool with that cable. Like he's got an antenna on his backpack, and this thing probably has like Wi-Fi built into it. So I think it's fine. I don't think he needs that. I think he's going to be okay. And last but not least of the accessories, like I said, this rather esoteric helmet, which there we go. Now he's the Mainframe we all grew up with. Now, if it was me, if I was designing this figure, one of the things that I would have done differently is I would have given Mainframe some little gray streaks in his hair. Because remember, he's supposed to be like a little older than the rest of the Joes. And not everybody goes gray as early as I do. But now I'm at a point in my life where I should be gray. But in my 20s, I was starting to get some gray streaks in my hair. So I kind of figure putting a little bit of gray in his hair would be appropriate. A nice little way of letting the people know that he is supposed to be a little bit over the hill. That's, to me, again, part of the appeal of this character. That was kind of part of what I liked about this character was he was kind of like on the older side as far as the G.I. Joe characters go. So, but then again, so was Duke. If you read his file card, he was supposed to be a little like an old soldier. He'd been like in Vietnam in the 1960s. Most of the Joes in the first couple of waves were Vietnam vets. Stalker and Snake Eyes and General Hawk, Duke, all those guys were Vietnam. So, and this guy was in Vietnam. So, Southeast Asia, that's what Larry always called Vietnam, because I guess he didn't want to date it too much. And, in the early part of the 80s, people were still kind of, ambivalent about, the war in Vietnam. And, Bobby Wald says anything for a computer specialist, he'd show up with a C connector instead of a generic mini USB. Yeah, well, maybe that's why he's got two cables on the back there. Maybe one's for one and one's for the other. Although it being yellow and red, it makes me think he's going to hook up his Nintendo. But Mainframe seems like the kind of guy who would have a Nintendo. For those younger people in the audience, when I say Nintendo, I'm talking about the original Nintendo Entertainment System, not the Super Nintendo, which is probably still like ancient technology for you guys, or the GameCube, which still came out before you guys were born, or any of your Nintendo Wii, why did they call it that anyway? I hear Wii, and I think you got to go to the bathroom. But yeah, I think that's it for Mainframe. I definitely want to have him holding the gun in the thumbnail because he actually has a gun. The original figure didn't have one. So a lot of people hated it when a G.I. Joe figure didn't come with a gun. And I can totally understand that logic. But the good thing is, at least by this point, we had accessory packs out. So you could buy an accessory pack and pick one of the guns out of there for Mainframe, or steal another gun from another one of your G.I. Joes if you don't like that character very much. Just swipe his gun. Like that's one of the reasons that airtight sniffer, I think, technically fires a bullet, so that way he can still have a gun. But yeah, he had the gun strapped to his chest in the figure, so he still technically came with a gun, just not one he could actually use. But really cool figure, just he's too short. If they made this same exact figure and he was like half an inch taller, I would be talking about how perfect this Mainframe figure is right now. But I don't think it's perfect. I think it's just achingly short of perfect because he's too short. That's the problem with this figure. And even after all that I went through trying to swap out the heads, and with the peg pulling out of the body and dropping it in the floor and trying to get it back in, the most frustrating thing about this figure to me is that he's too short, because I was able to fix that problem with the neck peg, but like he's gonna remain too short. That's how that's gonna work. But I might try to grab an extra one of these and swap some parts around with a taller figure and see if I can work some magic that way. But Bobby Wald says, are you going to start talking about the Power Glove, the best advancement in video game technology? Well, I wasn't planning on it, but maybe Mainframe's device over here was somewhat inspired by the Power Glove. It's so bad. Man, that actor was so bad. And I don't mean his like acting talents. I heard he got arrested for like being a creep. I don't want to get too much into that, but but yeah, that's what I heard. I don't know. Maybe I heard wrong. Hopefully I heard wrong. I don't want to wind up getting sued by the Power Glove is so bad kid from the Wizard. But anyway, that's it for Mainframe. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please make sure that you like and subscribe and all the fun usual stuff down below. But just because I'm done with talking about the basic G.I. Joe classified figures that I got to open up doesn't mean I'm done talking about G.I. Joe or G.I. Joe classified itself, because now we got some deluxe figures to talk about. So I randomly pulled this guy out of the box, the Desert Scorpion with his scorpion, which is Skirp 10N25. I don't know how I'm supposed to pronounce that. Scorpion. It's a scorpion. It's a big scorp. It's a big scorpion is what it is. It's the Desert Scorpion and his scorpion. And it's not like a big robot scorpion. It's a big old mutated, organic looking scorpion. There's some Cobra Law shit going on there. But yeah, he'll be the next guy we open up. This was one of my favorite troop builders from the 1990s. I always thought he was a super cool figure, but I never considered him to be a troop builder myself. He was too cool to be a troop builder. He was too unique to be a troop builder. So as far as I was concerned, this was a unique character. Bobby Wald says we were just watching 8-Bit Christmas, and that's all. Couldn't stop laughing about how terrible the Power Glove was. I remember watching an angry video game nerd video where he was talking about the Power Glove, and the main thing I remember about it was he was actually able to land the plane on the aircraft carrier in Top Gun, which was something he was absolutely not able to do in the Top Gun episode with the regular controller, and he was just amazed that he managed to do it. The Power Glove is one of those things where, like, it's definitely a cool idea. It's definitely something that I think worked better as an idea than it actually functioned. Lone Dragon is here and says, "I've come to chew bubblegum and chew bubble ass and kick gum." Well, I've done one of those things before, but gum is kind of small to try to kick it. Like I don't know. And it might get stuck on my shoe. But I've done one of those things. I'll let you guess which one. But yeah, next episode is going to be the Desert Scorpion. Another figure that, like, I always loved this guy. but you know, he's one that like I think he's probably got some fan following to him, but he's a 90s character, so I can't imagine that there's a lot of people that rank this guy really highly, but I ranked him pretty highly. I made a custom figure of this guy too, but that's neither here nor there. We will talk about him on the next episode. Thanks for watching. So I still got him. I still got I still got Law and Order, and I still got Sergeant Slaughter and Mercer in the 2-pack. And then I've got like the vintage carded figures, and I've got my Christmas figure. Christmas figure is going to open up on December 24th on Christmas Eve. That's going to be my Christmas episode this year. And a lot of you people, when you see that, are going to be like, why did he pick that for the Christmas episode, that figure in particular? Well, he's not any more or less Christmassy than any of the other figures that he's opened, but it'll make sense, I promise. So anyhow, that's it for this episode. Hope you enjoyed it. We will talk to you next time. Bye.